Welcome everybody to a new episode of Flower Circus Talks. We're a little bit later than normally. The technique let us down a little bit, but yeah, things like that happen. Today, very special episode. I'm very glad he's going to join us, Michael Forrest from Urbanstems.com. He has a great story. Met him before, so let's quickly invite him into the live stream and hear about his story. Mike, welcome.
Hey, John. Thanks for having me. I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to connect with all your audience.
Yeah, great for being in the show. I met you before. You're doing a presentation. You had some great things going on, and then with Urbanstems.com, you also were challenging, with the COVID-19, but in a different way than most of us in the floral industry. So I'm quite anxious to hear what you were facing during that period. Before, of course, you need to tell something about Urbanstems itself. So you prepared a presentation, so I will show the presentation as well.
Great.
Let's go from there. We had something prepared already, and that's first the introduction about you, then COVID, new market trends, and a really nice cooperation between you and Vogue, and your future outlook.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, like I said, thanks for having me. I'm probably a new face to most of the people on this call. I am actually myself. A little background about who I am and how I kind of got started at Urbanstems, but I've been here for about 3 years now. In August will be 3 years. And really my time at Urbanstems is my first venture into the floral industry. My prior experience was based on kind of SaaS-based software and traditional transportation and operations management. So the floral industry, it's been new. It's been an amazing ride for the last 3 years. I think really uncovering a culture that is very welcoming, and a culture within the industry that's welcoming new faces. And every time I go to trade shows, industry events, I think people are really excited to see some new faces to the business, bringing new ideas. And really, my time here in the floral industry, or even just at Urbanstems, it's been a roller coaster. It's been a lot of challenges, but also welcomed with support from our partners and who we work with, and really trying to push the envelope of what's new and getting away from what traditional floral business was built around, and kind of trying to pioneer what the digital industry looks like in the future. So with that being said, it's a little bit about myself, a little bit about my introduction to the industry, but more importantly, I know Urbanstems is also, we're up and coming, and a little bit of a new name as well. So those folks that haven't heard of Urbanstems, we are essentially modern floral and gifting service our tag is for thoughtful people. We are a digitally native brand, and we started purely direct to consumer sales. And I know it's a little bit different than what the industry as a whole is traditionally built upon. And our supply chain is a bit different than most models. We work a lot of direct partnerships with the farms and building bouquets with the farms and taking ownership of that product and getting it delivered to that end consumer. And I think the piece that we harp on the most is the consumer experience, the quality, and ensuring that the entire process from the native journey on the website all the way to the unboxing experience to that end consumer is as customer centric as we can make it. And it's been an evolving process over the years. I can tell you, when I first started Urbanstems 3 years ago to where we are now, we're a completely different company. I think we are built on the staple of being able to innovate and pivot as quickly as we can, and more importantly, learn as quickly as we can, and take insights from our consumers, but also from our partners, and understanding how we build a better overall customer experience within that. So if you kind of hop over to the next slide, John, I think it's really, when we talk about urban stems and what our vision is, like I said, it's to help create a future where people feel more connected. And I think you'll see the next step's one of our core values of a company is fostering connection. And at the end of the day, if you look back what the purpose of flowers are and really what the service that we offer is, it's the ability to allow somebody to be thoughtfully providing a present, a gift, note, or any type of communication to let that end user know that you're cared about, thinking about them, or trying to just express an emotion that there is a connection between those two individuals. And I think as a business, we're always thinking about how do we elevate that? How do we provide it in a service that's more personal? How do we provide that's more unique within that sender's experience and what they're trying to express? And so we were really flipping back the envelope and looking at all the way through the process, whether it's the envelope that we're sending a note in, the actual writing on the note. And we use services like handwriting software to kind of make it more human-esque within the unboxing experience. So I think it's been a really interesting journey for me and working with my partners throughout our organization, of connecting those supply chain aspects and the operational aspects to really tying in the marketing and the consumer feedback to make it a better and more unique experience within that.
Yeah, that's actually what I really like about your company. It's much more than just sending some flowers or plants from A to B. There's a whole thing behind it.
Yeah, and I think the piece that we found interesting as we got deeper into the business and started scaling and growing was we started working with more partners, more farms, and it was kind of getting the vision and kind of the pieces that we see on the consumer experience side down to those farm partners to really help them understand how do they align around that? How do they better their business profile to be a little bit more geared towards the future? Because traditionally, with the floral industry, but at least in the US, the way it kind of organically grew was this very retail-oriented model where the end consumer can go to a store, and whether it's Walmart, Whole Foods, any grocery store that's regionally located to them, and pick and choose the product that they want. And they can kind of make the gauge on what the quality of that product looks like. Yeah. And in that inherent kind of purchasing opportunity with the consumer, they take on the risk of what the product or the quality is there. And so what we really kind of had to get the farms behind was how do we ensure 100% of the product coming through the system is of the best tier quality, and how do we connect that information back to them so they can make real-time improvements with their farm operations, whether it's post-harvest or even the prep and planting of those products. And I think that's been, so far in my time in the industry, what's been really interesting to our farm partners, and really what they really enjoy working with us, is because we give them those real-time feedback points and it helps them get better. And I don't know, bluntly say, we don't sugarcoat it. We're pretty blunt about our feedback. And I will say, it's like one thing I'm really appreciative about is how proud people are of their the product that they put out. And so it's whenever we give them that type of constructive feedback, they never shy away from it. They wholeheartedly take it in. They try to digest it and make their processes better. And I think that's been one of the most incredible things that I've seen in the industry so far, is that willingness to step up and be a game changer in the overall process and make the industry as a whole better.
I think there's a big lack of information going both from growers up to the consumers and the other way around as well. Growers produce what they like. Of course, they have some information from the market. Depends also on which country they produce and where they sell. But still, we can get much more information from the market and use it from each other.
Definitely. And I think that's, in my vision, one of the biggest opportunities that sits in the industry is connecting the end consumer to really the breeders and the growers. And getting the mindset a little less away from pure production to consumer experience, and elevating that consumer experience and understanding we don't need to get product costs down to a certain very low margin oriented space, but you can be successful, you can operate in a higher end, and you can be passionate about certain new trends going on in the industry and really exploring the opportunity to grow new product, develop new product, and let the consumer be behind that story and see that story. And I think as a whole, and kind of any industry growth that you see momentum behind it, it's all about the connection to the consumer and the story that you can tell with that consumer and get them bought into the overall experience, from the conceptualization of a STEM or a product to it getting to their hands, and the amount of work that goes in to get there, because it's a ton of work and it's a lot of effort and lift to get a concept of a STEM to an end consumer. It could be up to 10 years, sometimes 15 years. I've been talking with some of the breeders, and I think that piece of it is a story untold, and it's something that is a really incredible journey throughout the product development process.
And there's still a lot to be reached, and but also part of your values, I think, what you just told.
Yeah, and so rooted underneath all of that, I think as a company, most of us, honestly, as a startup, didn't start in the floral industry. So we have people that were either in tech before, or operations and politics. And so we have this unique accumulation of minds at our company. And I think we're, as most kind of startups nowadays are, we're really people first and really social oriented in terms of what's going on, whether it's in the US, the recent Black Lives Matter movement, or all the things that are accumulating into the communities around us, and how do we help support some of those activities, help support those voices. And I think going back to the vision, it's really, you're giving a consumer a voice, a way to kind of push an emotional connection to a one-to-one peer or outward to a bigger community. And so behind all that is really, we're built on 4 pillars. And you'll notice that they all kind of pull back to personalization, but it's being human. We recognize, even within the company, we're all human. We're going to make mistakes, but really we take pride in correcting those mistakes. We have feelings, and we really want to connect with each other, but also connect with our consumers. And another piece is really in that theme of connection. It's fostering that connection. How do we help support our consumer base to make those connections, stay connected, and really reach out to other areas, whether it's through some of our social programs like Stay Connected through STEMs, where we offer free sends through nominations. A consumer can go to our social sites and say, hey, I want to nominate so-and-so for working on the front line of COVID. They've been at the hospital for the last 2 weeks, and the work that they're doing is incredible. And we want to push that forward. We want to make sure that type of message is getting out, that type of connection and community exists within our cultures. And really, at the end of the day, we want to be heard, we want to be loved, and we want to be felt as if we belong. And so I think that's really what we tried to make happen within our company, but also within our consumers. And then behind that, really, it's about modern thinking. It's not just on the website, the fact that we're digitally native, but also things around product design, and going into aspects of why we have a partnership with Vogue, which we'll get in a little bit later on. But it's all about how do we continue to elevate and connect to things that our consumers are looking at, and things that resonate with them. And so I think we're always, at times, especially for me and on the operations and supply chain side, it makes things tough, because I have to be flexible in how we introduce new products, because my merchandising team, I'll tell you, that they're always out there trying to find the next cool thing, things that they see in social media, and quickly gravitate to what they're thinking about adding, whether it's a pot to a plant or a vase for our offering. And how we can quickly get that to market. But I think overall, it's kind of reinventing the merchandising side week over week. And then lastly, it's kind of what I was talking about before. It's taking pride in our product, and really the product from the actual deliverable flowers to plant. It's also the product, it's the interaction that the consumer has on our website, and also within our community, whether it's through social media, the partnerships and community service that we do within our local communities as well. So I think it's these four pillars that really build up together is really what we try to push out. And then like I said, we're human, we're not perfect, and we make mistakes, but we kind of always right back between these values that we try to represent as a company.
Yeah. Yeah, it's of course difficult as a company which is online to give yourself a face and to present yourself. But I think in this way, how you do it, you do a great job. And yeah, from ordering or already thinking about ordering flowers from you until getting it there, it's one big experience for the people, and that makes it really interesting. It's like almost like booking a vacation. You get many years ago, you were just getting a book and checking it, and you already had a lot of fun. But with you get already the fun ordering the flowers.
Yeah, if only we could deliver PTO days to people as well.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe we'll get there one day.
Yeah, it's our new B2B line that we're getting ready to roll out.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah, and then I think you just started, and you were growing quite rapidly, and then all of a sudden it was March,
Mm-hmm.
and we got into the COVID.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I was tracking it very closely, starting in probably the end of January, and it's kind of just being in supply chain and knowing how global our industry is, but even just the world in general. Just being a supply chain professional, sometimes you're a little bit more geared to kind of what's happening in other countries. But I remember me and my boss, our COO, back in January, we kind of saw it start to develop in China, and we immediately, because especially a lot of our vases come from there, we were thinking through, all right, well, what's our contingency plan if this goes down? And we slowly started seeing it evolve to the point in March where in the US, it quickly hit us and it spread, and it became a huge issue. So fortunately, we were already in the mindset of contingency planning throughout the end of February. While Valentine's Day was going on, we were in the back end thinking, all right, what happens if we have to close down a facility? What happens if our farms close down? Where can we redistribute our sourcing from? And so it was probably a matter of 2 to 3 weeks of us kind of, and my team working in the back end, building out the check boxes of, if this happens, we can do this. And I have many of Excel files that I poured blood, sweat, and tears into, and my team did as well. And I think of this year, one of the things I'm most proud about is in this unfortunate situation, we not only were able to prevent a loss and and preventing our consumers to stay connected through these challenging times, but really doubling what we anticipated to do, and enabling so many more users to stay connected through their networks, while the interaction of interperson communication was completely gone. And so I think within the whole space, it was incredible to see that, but it was also really incredibly challenging. I think one of the big pieces I'll give Seth, our CEO, a lot of credit for was he recognized that being at home and being in this new workspace was something that was going to be mentally tolling, and something was new, something that we'd never experienced before as an entire community. And so we would have weekly calls and just touch base in with the entire company, and at least express the challenges that people were facing on week to week, to just being home, not being able to communicate together within the work, but also in your personal life too. And I think when we talk about being human, that was one of the really cool things that I experienced is, even though we were all separated together, I got to see parts of people's personality that I'd never seen before if we were just working our normal office, normal operations. And I think that's been really the driving force to keep pushing behind these really hard times. And
the picture on all the people showed the real people. Well, actually, your screen is a little bit like a magic screen at the moment. That's why we are having an interview with Flower Circus again. So, but we can still hear you quite well. So I think we just should continue with what's happening. Probably it will come back again. This was something we were facing a little bit earlier again. So I think I will show the next slide in which you can tell more about what happened during COVID-19.
Yeah. So, like I said, what I was talking about earlier is this really intriguing demand change and market change during the COVID months. And obviously within the US and across Europe as well, you had this closure of traditional retail shops. And then compounded on top of that, you had this space where people were reaching out and trying to find ways to stay connected through their colleagues, their friends, their family, and not being able to other than a phone call or a video chat. And I think really what we saw was not just a surge in demand, but also a change in some of the sentiment trends in terms of why people are sending. And it was funny because back in, I think it was March 6th is where the rest of the company started getting behind like the concept of like, oh crap, like we need to really get like behind the ball and understanding what we need to do in business to prepare for this. And I was coming to the standpoint, it's like demand's going to go down. And because naturally when you have that type of disaster, people retract their spending and are a little bit more cognizant on non-essential spending. And so that's where my head was at. But on my marketing side, was like and a lot of credit to them. They were talking more along the lines of like the social aspect of it and the intercommunications of where they're going to be looking more for the service. And they hit the nail on the head. And we, as a company, and this graph that you're seeing is really a line chart of our variance from plan in terms of order, blue thing. And so this is what we booked. Every week we're selling out Monday to Tuesday. We weren't able to even supply near the demand that was there.
Wow.
And it was incredible to see because like you can see here in terms of the sentiment trends is unfortunately some of like the upticks was sadly, it was condolences. And if you read through some of the cards, it was people passing away, whether it's due to COVID or other natural causes. But also the sentiment of just missing their presence and missing them being around them. But also, and like other really interesting things that we saw in terms of trends was congratulations, especially for peak weeks like graduation weeks. And there's also interesting, apparently, I forget what 2 to 3 weeks it is, but in June, congratulations on pregnancies. And expecting. But then self-sends were up way as well too. And I think a lot of that was probably driven to our channel where people are at home, they're looking to spruce up their internal space. And then the last and obvious one was really birthdays, and that's because, and again, that goes back to being able to stay connected within your own networks. And instead of going out to dinner and celebrating over drinks or people were sending happy birthdays through flower and different gifting channels.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's unbelievable how it changed. Yeah. And especially for the online, it was a great way of getting more sales.
Yeah, it very much was, and the challenging part within all that was, and I'll get into this a little bit more on the other slide as well. But with that volume increase, we drastically had to shift some of our supply chain operations around to just even start supporting more of that volume. But more importantly, on top of that was the challenges that COVID presented for product quality and the end deliverable consumer experience through our shipping channels and delivery channels. And so what we ended up seeing with product quality was, most people I'm sure aware that are in the industry, is that just as we were affected in the US and Europe and kind of all over the world, so was South America, where a majority of our product comes from. And in Colombia and Ecuador, we got fortunate where those governments considered the floral industry to be essential business. And so those farms were able to stay open and still operate, but they had to really tailor back their workforce and really ran scouting crews. So we saw a lot of challenges where our normalized in-person QC programs were no longer able to, like, our auditors couldn't go to the farm anymore. We couldn't be working with our farm operations to help ensure that our product was in line with the quality specs. So we started seeing some slip of quality performance there. And then also the care of the plants, and also the planting and planning for post cycles of growth cycles at the farms were affected as well. So even after things have kind of stabilized post June, mid-July, where operations is getting back to normal in South America in terms of just being able to get to the post-harvest functions and quality functions and getting all the everyday pieces back into place for the most part, we're still seeing the after effects of it because, as we all know, it's all about growth cycle. It's all about how those plants were treated. And so what we're hearing from our partners is, quality-wise, it's probably going to be through August that we're going to have issues. And I'll give our partners, our farm partners, a ton of credit because we saw the spike in quality issues, but we started implementing a couple digital tools, and they got really creative of how they could better support quality after Mother's Day. And we've seen that general quality issue go down, where we're almost back to our pre-COVID rate. And yeah, so that's amazing. A lot of kudos to our partners, and I think it's across the board in the industry, and even farms that we don't work with. So, and then also, I'd say, like, on the domestic side here in the U.S., it was a ton of challenges on the delivery side. And one of the things of being in a digitally native e-commerce space, sometimes it can have the image and view of put it in a package and send it out the door and, like, kind of set it and forget it. Fortunately, that's not the case. And with folks like FedEx, UPS, and kind of all your regional carriers within the US, they too were affected by COVID. And so they had limitations of staffing, but also the same challenges that we faced, a huge surge in demand. So they saw on-time delivery issues start spiking up. And really, we worked with them and trying to develop strategies of how we can kind of funnel volume through different services to better help them out spreading the volume and support the overall fluctuation in demand. And again, a lot of kudos to those partners as well, because the amount of work that went into being able to support that from not just an operational standpoint, but financially. And we worked 3 or 4 of our contracts to be able to support sending it through express next day instead of a ground service. So that was a big hurdle, but it's something that when you put your mind to it, you can accomplish it. And I was really surprised and forward to see, like, those partners step up to the plate like that.
Were you still able to deliver in the same time as you were used to do?
Yeah, so we maintained our customer expected service schedule for delivery time frames. Obviously, we had to close down, or we ended up closing down, because we operate 2 services. It's the nationwide shipping through partial shipping, and then also a same-day delivery service in DC and New York City. and we had to close down our same day services, and that was out of the safety of our operators and delivery partners to just ensure that it's always employee safety first, and also our partner safety as well. But as we pulled that volume back into the next day service, we were still able to maintain the same consumer experience. It was just more about figuring out how to get a better on-time rate through those delivery partners.
Okay, great. I think we can go to the next slide. Yeah, what you did. I think you already explained it a bit. What you did there. So.
Yep. Yeah, I would say the couple other things that maybe I'd just touch on briefly is, in order to just simplify, like we had to, in order to execute some of these volume increases and help support our partners, is really, we had to take a look back at what was our product mix, why were we offering some things, and take a gut look at, do we need this volume of SKUs, and can we consolidate and simplify through a core group of products and price points, which really helped out us internally, but also some of our other nationwide third-party fulfillment partners. And then I'd say the other piece too was on the marketing side, a couple of quick bullets. This isn't my area of expertise, but something I will highlight because I think that side of the organization did a really incredible job of, with understanding the surging demand. Really, they looked to maximize ad spend, and we got some incredible ROI based on an understanding and really playing the right channels on those consumers, hitting our touch points, whether it's through social media or ad spend or kind of organic traffic through our emails. Additionally, we launched some awesome customer outreach programs, like as mentioned before, Stay Connected with Stems, and giving our user base an opportunity to nominate and really push this togetherness culture and really going back to being human. And then the last piece is with people at home and looking for other connections, learning other opportunities. We hosted a lot of DIY classes, whether it was through building bouquets, doing dried stems, or kind of all new interesting topics within the industry. And so it was an opportunity to kind of create some organic following behind that and connect back with our customer base.
Yeah. Actually, you are a bit more busy than ever on social media and online to reach out to your customers.
Yeah, I mean, that's where people were, and we recognize there's a really good opportunity to continue to build that foundation and that connection with our customers.
Yeah, so you like starting the DIY classes, things like that, just to get them more into the Urbanstems.
Yeah. And I mean, and one of the really cool things that came out of that too was we got such a resounding feedback on it, and like asks around, how can we do this at home with product that you guys supply? And it pushed us to making, next week we were launching a DIY box where we're sending consumer bunches of stems and giving the customer kind of a tutorial video of how to walk through, build their own bouquets, how to cut it to height, do the different bouquet building presentation styles. And so I think that was one of the really cool things is we took an opportunity to connect and directly pull that feedback from the consumer and create a new product that we've never done before.
That's great. People get tired sitting behind their computer or with their telephone as well, so they need to have something to do.
Yeah, you got to keep yourself entertained.
Yeah, that's for sure. And then why not with flowers and plants? Because people got a renewed interest in flowers and plants. That's what we see everywhere, all over the world, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you see it in the floral industry. I mean, you see it in the plant side. The demand there, it's incredible. I think we're working with our growers on the plants and greenhouses, and they're struggling to keep up just the same way that we were. So I think it's a really awesome shift to see how the consumer is interacting with these kind of perishable or livable products. So I'm excited to see what kind of continues to evolve and develop within both of those industries.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I think in previous interviews we talked a lot about working together with other industries and things like that. But you were already doing this before COVID-19 with Vogue.
Yeah, we really just, I think, like I said before, with some of the different personalities that we had in the company and being digitally native, we really looked at some of our marketing channels, but also some of our PR channels, and understanding how do we leverage that side of the business and be a little bit more brand oriented. And I think the biggest thing that we push forward overall, and one of our differentiators, is the brand, the Urbanstems brand, and who we are, what the experience that you get when you come to Urbanstems. And we really saw Vogue being kind of aligned to what we saw being a more modern, more upscale, more kind of unique and culturally oriented, on the forefront of design. And so we kind of partnered up with them in tandem with our launch of our nationwide service in 2018 in January. And what the program is essentially, we run quarterly product cycles where we launch 3 Vogue design bouquets, and it's paired with a high-end vase. And then within that, each of the products is uniquely designed with our design team, but also in collaboration with a direct Vogue editor. So some prior examples were the Sally, which Sally Singer was the designer or the editor that kind of participated in that, or Shelby. Shelby Drummond was another designer within it. And what we kind of saw within this was, the process and how they look at design, how they can really push us to be innovative in terms of what culturally elsewhere is going on. Obviously, Vogue is very oriented and has a foot in the European markets and that cultural forefront, and bringing insights from that into the overall design experience, even if it's from STEM type to the overall feel and look of a product, and how that product should be photographed, how it should be presented, how the consumer is going to really relate to the product. And those levels of thought, or what we saw as not just the PR and the brand component to it, but the value out of getting their eyes, their insights, and their kind of experience within the design process, and force us to be a little bit more unique within that space. And then also in terms of just pure business wise as well, like we saw an opportunity to reach new consumer demographics. So I think obviously we operate a little bit on the higher end in terms of our product offering, but we pushed the envelope of really where you could get a price point and a consumer would still see the value in it. And some of our products prior to Vogue, the highest that we had gone up as a price point as a company was, I believe, $90. And then we launched Vogue at a price point of $150 per order. And I remember there were certain factions in the company. I was like, there's no way that someone's going to buy this. It's way too expensive. And lo and behold, there is demand for that space. And it's just a matter of aligning what the consumer sees value in it and how you execute that against that value, to make sure that you're providing that correct consumer experience in that space. And I think having the opportunity to pull those consumers in and get feedback from them has been a really big game changer, because over the last 2 years, we've seen an ability to slowly step up our AOS prices, or AOS within our product offering, and still really provide a great consumer experience and maintain overall great feedback loop from our consumers as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. There are almost no brands in the floral industry. That's something that makes the floral industry very special. But I think, you launching it and branding your own brand, that's a great way of presenting yourself.
Yeah, and the next couple slides here, in terms of when I talk about like inspiring us and challenging us in design. So these are examples from a couple of the design sessions and photo shoots that we had at the Vogue offices. And like I said, I was very fortunate, and I've actually gotten to attend a couple of these. And they're over, like, I inherently don't consider myself very creative based, I have spurts of inspiration and creativity, but it's not like inherently native to me. So being able to sit in and see this process and see like some of the imagery that they look at and how they pull it into the design of a bouquet, and really where they see like the conversation's really about, well, all right, if we do these types of stems and we arrange it like this, it'd be great for this type of photo shoot and these types of angles and this presentation, and really kind of connecting with the consumer on that front. And I think I have maybe a couple slides here. Yeah. And I think that was for me a big takeaway in tying supply chain, product design, operations, and really tying back the consumer focus to it, and then the cultural standpoint behind it as well.
I think it's really nice to see that it's not only the product that's in focus, it's the whole style which really suits Vogue and their readers, of course, as well.
Yeah.
So for them, it's easy if they have that type of interior, then they can see the bouquet already over there. So it's quite easy for them to buy that bouquet then.
Yeah, and I think that's when you look at our website. I think what was this, maybe 7 months ago, we rolled out we did a website redesign because our original structure and framework wasn't giving us the ability to really present products and the consumer interaction the way that we wanted to, and a lot of that was driven through our experiences in working with Vogue, and you'll see it in our photography where it's very minimalistic in some aspects and different angling than what you would normally see throughout the industry.
Yeah, people can have a look as well. It's the website looks really nice. I mean, it's yeah.
Appreciate that. I had nothing to do with it, but it does look fantastic. And again, another big kudos to my e-commerce team and our marketing team on really rolling that out, and really our development team that was the function behind getting that. But it was a big transformation in our business in terms of some of our sales funnels and how we can kind of tack on new touch points to a consumer, whether that's through loyalty programs or directing them through algorithms of smart kind of product listings and how they come to the page, and there's already pre-assortment based on their prior experiences on our website. It's just opened up the door in terms of opportunity, how we uniquely interact with each individual consumer and making that overall experience more human to them, more personal to them. So I think it took us a year and a half to do, but it was well worth it in terms of investment. So
yeah, I think it's that a lot of people don't know and they don't see it, but the whole technique behind it, the website that you see if you click somewhere, and like you talked about the funnel, that's something you don't see, but it takes a long time to build it and to implement it in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
To get, like you said, the consumer to buy, but the whole experience.
Yeah. And there's so many touch points to it, where it's like even things are like search word optimization and how you add text on the back end to really drive Google hits and your Google search prioritization. But and then more importantly, it's about if somebody's coming to the website looking for a certain floral type of product, how do you make sure you're presenting that product to them right away, so they're not having to go search through a bunch of different products and kind of hit the sea of doubt in terms of making a decision on something. So I think it's a really important thing about how you prioritize and structure your sales funnel for what you're going for as an overall business experience.
Yeah. I've got a question here from Caroline. She's asking, what are the traditional florists doing wrong, and it makes you believe you can do better? And you are talking or creating market share, or taking or creating market share.
Yeah, really good question, and I wouldn't say what traditional florists are doing wrong. I really think that a local florist is an amazing experience. They give the opportunity to a consumer to go physically touch and feel something. And I think I like to think a bit about separating out your traditional floral shop from grocery store to mass market retail, because I think those are two completely different experiences. Where mass market, all that product is pre-developed at the farm and is structured solely around margin and cost savings, where the consumer can go in and choose from a couple sets of different predetermined products. And it's more based on, they're looking at that design and looking at the quality of the flowers and saying, like, this is worth my $10 to $15 investment. Versus the local florist is, they can go in and design a bouquet, or they can pick a handmade design bouquet from that local florist, from that designer, and have the touch and feel component to it, and experience the connection with the flower, developing their own product. And I think as we look to the future, those are pieces that we want to look to emulate and provide better options than just kind of a higher end pre-built product that you can get through us right now. But I think the challenge on the local floral side is, it's more about the digital aspect of it. So it's, as the industry and as consumers are moving more to e-commerce and digitalization of their shopping experiences, how does that industry get behind that? How do they catch up and build their own brand behind it? Because right now, a lot of those companies are dependent through reselling on 1-800-Flowers or the big guys, and it's not so much their brand. It's just you're kind of taking in orders from their brand, and it's not an experience that you can kind of directly control with that end consumer.
Yeah, I think they still have the big advantage that you can offer a whole experience if you go into a flower shop, and I think they should make it more of an experience. I mean, you see all kinds of other shops as well making it, instead of just displaying their shoes or whatever kind of product, it's more of an experience. And I mean, the flower shop can do that as well, or has to do it as well.
Yeah, I think that's retail as a whole is going to, obviously with COVID, there's its own set of challenges, but even before COVID hit, there was this transformation of, it's not just consumerism and going to buy a material good. It's an experience that you're able to deliver, like you said, John, to the end consumer, whether it's through advertising or kind of the storefront design and the space of, like one example I kind of always go back to, just because I'm a little bit of a coffee nut, is coffee shops. I think across the world, there's 1,000 different coffee shops, and you see the globalization of Starbucks, and there is a very unique experience that they provide, but as like a more local mom and pop type of coffee shop, what makes them successful, and when you see successful functions of that, is the internal experience there. And one of my local shops I go to a lot, is they have this really unique blend of, they're a coffee shop and also a plant shop, and able to create the space that you want to sit there. You want to come in, and it's very lifting. It's this experience that's vibrating within kind of what your personal connection with that commodity is.
Yeah, and continuing on those coffee shops, the prices for a normal coffee let's say in an old-fashioned coffee shop, they're quite low. But if you get the whole experience, you're paying $5, $6, sometimes even $10 for coffee, and that is what a flower shop should do as well. Okay, you can buy your dozen of roses in the supermarket. That's for a cheap price. But if you want the whole experience, then you need to go up with the prices as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and ties back to kind of what I was hitting on earlier around the value that a consumer feels in not just the product, but the experience, and what ways you can drive increases in AOS and not have a disconnect on expectations. Obviously, you don't want to be in a space where you're overcharging and not delivering a value that is perceived by the consumer to be in line with that, because then it's just a model that doesn't work. But if you're able to take those consumer insights and make that lift up, it makes operating in some of the spaces a lot easier. You're not so much worried about 50 cents in margin per se. It's more about you're gearing to ensure I'm going to spend more money around over developing the consumer experience and over delivering to them so that they're coming back. And it's a reoccurring function for them whenever they have a birthday, an anniversary or something, because they know coming through this channel, what they're going to get is that high-end experience that they're looking for to provide that connection that they're delivering to.
Yeah. People are going out just for an experience nowadays. People don't go out shopping anymore because that's what they do online now. So you need to be really special.
Yeah, I think with COVID too, it's interesting. Like I was actually listening to, I don't know how many folks listen to about how I built this podcast, and the other day there's I'm drawing a blank on her name, but the CEO of Eventbrite, and obviously their business was one that was hugely hit because there's no longer ticket sales of in-person events. But one of the things that she mentioned was this evolution of digitalization of events, whether people are now like delivering pre-packaged meal kits for cooking classes and hosting classes online, and the amount of like community sentiment that's getting behind that and the feedback that those companies are doing, it's making a change in how those different businesses can kind of interact and maintain that connection with their consumers, but also make a profitable business around it too. So I think over the next couple of years, we're going to see this drastic shift in how some companies approach that consumer experience, and are able to build really good and interesting businesses around it.
Yeah, already got an idea here from Cookie Noel. He calls it the Flower Cafe.
That would be, if there was actually, kid you not, because we explored pop-up shops at one point in time. And that was a concept that we tried to see if it was viable. And at the point in time, we were too small to make it happen, and some of the spoilage risks that sat within it. But it was definitely something that resonated with our marketing team as an opportunity to physically connect with our consumers. And I think about when businesses evolves, it's about omni-channel. And omni-channel, it's like having e-commerce, but also the physical presence, because still at the end of the day, we're all human, and physical touch can never be replaced. It's the most generic way to kind of make a connection.
Yeah. I've got one more question from Caroline. Is your growth and sales based on new customer sales or switching from your competitors?
So that's a really good question, and I honestly think it's a blend of both. And we right now don't have a ton of metrics that tell us whether a consumer that's coming to us is coming from a traditional outlet of florals. I mean, we'll do surveys every once in a while to get a feel for what other competitors they use. And the normal feedback is like 1-800 or Books, or kind of the other bigger e-commerce players in the market. But what we do track is our new versus repeat consumers. And we have seen a spike of new users. It was actually interesting at the beginning of COVID and March and April, we saw a spike in new users, really people that were looking to come from probably different channels, was what we anticipated, whether that was traditionally a retail mass market or another e-commerce channel that they couldn't their order for. But as we moved into June and July, we started seeing our repeat rates kind of pick back up to where they were. For us, that's a good thing, because we view that as one of the big things as we look at is that balance between new and repeat, because it's all about healthy rates between those and your overall lifetime value of a consumer. Because at the end of the day, realistic thing is that it costs money to get every new consumer. So how you retain that customer is critical to the health of the business. And so we initially, like I was saying, we had that spike of new users. We weren't overtly concerned. We were mildly concerned around, well, all right, we're way off balance of what we tried to hold. And we kind of just sat on it and let's keep an eye on it in the next month. And so fortunately, you saw it start kind of trickling back to its normal rates, which to us, we ended up seeing some of those new users became repeat users. And somebody that was new to us in April, by July, I think we had like a handful of power users that kind of in the month of two to 3 months, they'd sent 15 to 20 orders throughout their network, and I think it was really cool to see, because sometimes that type of thing it's a validation point, like the things that you're doing are working.
Yeah.
And I think that was an awesome thing to see, and a trend change to happen on our end.
Yeah, that's true. You also prepared a slide with some of the bouquet designs from the last, I think, 2 years.
Yeah, last 2 years. So I think over this is to give you a feel for what the designs are. I'm working with some of those Vogue editors. I think this next month will be, was it September? We'll launch our ninth iteration. We've eighth or ninth, and we had some gaps with COVID, and also some challenges on just organizing timing for design with Vogue. But we'll be at 27 bouquets that we've developed and designed with them over the last two and a half years. Like I said, they've been our forefront of kind of pushing the envelope on design and bouquet design. And so you can see it's very robust product, unique product, elevating what people would traditionally use as a freedom rose, which is, in my opinion, it's a fantastic rose. It's durable. You know what you can get out of it, but replacing that with garden roses and seeing what ways you can kind of fluff up and create new texture within the bouquet. And I think it's been a great experience working with them, and it's been definitely fundamental for how we view the product design side and really relate to our consumers.
It's more a bit of a European style, what you see if you compare it with the other people around there online. So
yeah, very much.
That's great. And what about the future? How do you see the future? Nobody knows what's happening, of course, or what will happen in the near future, if you get a second wave or not. But what are the plans?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I wish I had a crystal ball and could tell you what we could expect over the next 6 months to call it 2 years. And I think the reality is we don't know. And it's in terms of being able to adapt and survive. It's one thing that we've been fortunate enough is our supply chain, whether it's from our partners all the way down to the farm level to delivering to the consumer, is we've been resilient and we've been able to adapt. We've been able to accept the fact that at times the world's not fair, and you just have to bite the bullet and figure out how to solution for what's happening now. So I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think we're always going to be operating in that the next probably 6 months to a year. But within that, I think there are still really key pieces that we want to drive behind from a business strategy standpoint, and where we see opportunities in the industry.
Yeah.
And you can see here, I think the number one thing, and kind of what I've hinted on this entire call, is continuing to elevate the consumer experience. And I think we, as a company and organization, we go through and we map out the entire experience, whether it's from the sales funnel on the website all the way to a Google search, to the supply chain and fulfillment piece of it, to the unboxing experience and the product itself, and how the consumer interacts and perceives that. I think we as a company have a ton of work to do there for every piece of that segment. And while we are pretty digitally native and good about getting that feedback, we still are working to develop more root-oriented experiences of why. And on the operations supply chain side, traditionally it's called the 5 why exercise of this happened, why did that happen, and then really getting down to what's the key root driver behind that. And it's understanding the psychological approach to the overall experience, and why somebody's looking for flowers, why are they sending, and it not be just so transactionally, like I want to send a gift to this person, but how do you kind of better enable that? And so I think over the next year, we'll look to roll out tools around like more in-depth subscription services, helping our customers stay in touch with their network and their ability to kind of easily monitor that. I think that the next piece is, as you'll see these kind of progressionally, you get a little bit more oriented to the supply chain and operations side and the industry itself. But Second is creating a more transparent supply chain and helping our partners align to those end consumers. So I think when I say the transparent supply chain, I think there's so much opportunity to just for myself and for procurement teams to better understand the full function and activity that's going into a product, a seed going into the ground to it getting delivered to your warehouse or your fulfillment location or your store, and understanding that story. And I think, John, you and I were talking about this in depth the other day of the amount of work that goes behind a conceptual idea for like a new product or a new stem or a new breed is huge. And it's not so much, there's segments of it too. And so you have the breeding function, you have the farm and the growing function, and then you have really the consumer or selling function at the end of it. And right now it seems like each of those kind of connect interdependently to each other. So obviously the breeders work directly with the farms, bringing new products, but yet a lot of times that selling function sits outside of those decision-making processes. And I think as a whole, if the more that we, and kind of what you were talking about earlier, the more that we can connect all three of those functions together, it just helps the industry as a whole. And I think at the end of the day, what we're shooting for is not so much, even in the Urbanstems, not so much success for ourselves. It's like, obviously it's what we want to do, but our success is also tailored to the success of the industry. And if I can get another consumer to come that was used to not purchase flowers to come purchase flowers, that's a win for me. And I think overall it's a win for the industry, and understanding how do we better cultivate that type of culture within just not organizations, but the overall industry as a whole. Because I like a really good example on this is called ranunculus. And I know in Europe that's been there for a while, and US domestic 2 years ago, trying to find a ranunculus was next to impossible. It was very few and far between. My merchandising team was like, I need this, because they saw it in the European markets and I couldn't support it for them. And so it took years of working with farm partners and breeders and getting them to have that conversation and say, guys, like, this is a hit, grow it. And it's like, I understand it takes a productivity hit, what you traditionally see with some of your other products and grows, but the demand that sits here, it makes up for it from a margin perspective. Like, and the more that we can have those types of conversations and being able to connect my farm partners to what the end consumer is saying and making that closed loop feedback happen quicker, the quicker that we as an industry can kind of be more aligned to what that consumer value profile is, and understanding how you take a $15 mass market retail bouquet and bring it up to a $150 order item. And I think to me, that's where a lot of my passion sits in it. It's not so much like the sales and business side for Urbanstems, but more about helping my partners be more aligned to that, thinking a little bit more future and giving them the information to be successful. And so that's where, like, I get really jazzed up about it. You probably noticed the tone of my voice got excited, because it's awesome. And I love being able to work with a lot of the farms. They're mom and pop organizations. Some of them are big, but they're also family owned. And that, as a person that came from parents that started small business, that resonates a lot with me. And I love the opportunity to kind of make that connection and be able to tell that story to my farm, but also more importantly to the consumer, and let them know how much work goes into it, because it is a really awesome story. And I think it's something that underplayed so much in the industry. The more that we present it, the more it humanizes the entire product and makes it so much more personable to get behind and more intriguing to get involved in. And that's, like I said, really excited about that piece. And I think we as a company recognize that. And it's one piece I love about Urbanstems is the fact that we want to drive that thought forward.
Yeah.
And then really last and third piece, it's like going back, as I said earlier, it's fostering the connection, fostering community. And whether we're working through community service and connecting with opportunities, organizations to push Like a good example is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We work with several cancer organizations to create donation funnels wherever we sell certain bouquets that are Breast Cancer Awareness Month oriented. And we donate a certain set of the proceeds to that. Those given organizations, and I think we'll continue as a company look to make those direct connections through either localized community groups or more national networks as well. But ultimately, it's all about going to that same concept of connecting together, giving opportunities to be more human with one another.
Yeah, that's great, and we can do that online now as well. I mean, we thought we never could do it, but I think we now all figure out how we can do it, and we need to do it actually. So
yeah, and I mean it is a challenge with being digital, like heavily digital. Sometimes you lose. Even like I said, within work, there are times where we'll get very transactional with each other in terms of like coworkers and department of like email, and then sometimes forget to make the call, be human. And I think that's really the foundation. It's funny because it's what we preach, but also it's human nature. Sometimes whenever you're not face to face, it's easy to kind of get disconnected and forget the other person on the other side of that phone or that email is human. They have feelings. They have the aspect of wanting to be acknowledged and connected and staying in that loop. So I think it's a tough challenge for everybody right now. I think it's a critical piece that we play, not just for us, but the entire industry. And knowing florals, it's connection and it's showing love and showing appreciation for your community whenever you give somebody flowers.
Yeah, that's totally true. Unfortunately, it's still online, and sometimes the connection isn't as it should be. Like I can't really see you, and people probably can't see you as well, as good as we would like. But yeah, your story is really great, and I learned a lot again. I think the people who were watching as well. I mean, it's a great story what you build up just in a few years, what you're working on, and yeah, what the future plans are. I mean, you still can achieve a lot more than you're doing already now. So that's really great.
No, I appreciate that, and like I said earlier, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and talk with you and share our story because, like I said, for me, it's more important about helping push the industry forward, helping the farms or even the local florists out. I think it's collectively, it's an opportunity to provide people a life support in terms of economics and also the connection within their community. So like I said before, John, really appreciate you reaching out and having me on.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. And like you already said, we're in it all together, and you supporting the growers, that everybody has work. We know that they are having really tough times, especially South America at the moment. So let's hope we get out of it together stronger. Caroline is saying fascinating and love the way you have been so willing to share. Thank you for being so open. She has learned a lot, and actually you're back again. That's always nice to also see you.
Well, I appreciate the questions, Caroline. They were very good questions and very thoughtful.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you for watching. Michael, thank you for joining the show. Hope to see you soon again. Let's keep in contact, and everybody, hope to see you next Friday again. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.